Alright, so this video what we need is we need to grab Cinemachine. We're going to be doing some video cuts where our character walks in, hits a trigger, and then a camera will cut here and focus it on this trash robot. And what we're going to need is the Cinemachine object. So go ahead and download and import it. It looks like this right here. Once you have that imported, you'll see it has Cinemachine up here. So what I'm going to do is, here I'll recreate this step, but go to Game Object, Create Empty, and rename your empty game object Game Manager. And then go to Window and then look and open up your timeline editor. And with your game manager selected, we're going to create a new timeline. Let me dock this down here. So I'll hit create and it's going to prompt you where do you want to save your playable timeline. What I do in my assets folder is I actually create a folder called um, animation or timeline. And inside of here, you'll notice it says game manager timeline. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. This will be essentially our timeline for the living room to kitchen scene. The game I'm planning on making here is really only going to be a few shots inside the house and then it's going to cut the outside. Alright, so you can see down here that once that timeline is created, we have a timeline window here. It's no longer asking us to create one, and that's because we're working in our game manager timeline. I'm going to right click here and I'm going to create a new animation track, and I'm going to name this or I'm sorry, I'm going to right click and create a new animation group, track group, and I'm going to name this um, maybe, let's see, objects. And what's really interesting is I want to draw attention to maybe I'll trigger like as we're walking in that a suitcase will fall on the floor from over here. Or you know what we can do is, yeah, we'll place this briefcase up top and it'll maybe draw our attention to something on the floor. So we're kind of using animation as a tool, as a game design tool, to sort of move our project along. Now, remember I have my game manager here and I want to add that suitcase onto this objects track. And that's pretty easy to do. So here's my suitcase. And what I can do is, instead of it keep switching off every time I click, I'm going to lock this. And I'm going to drag my suitcase from here onto my animation timeline. And I'm going to make this an animation track because I want to animate this. And I'm just going to drag it on top. Now, what we can do is we can turn this record on and now it's recording, right? So I can move this and you can see it's set the position and I can move it a few frames and I can have it teeter a little bit back and teeter a little bit forward. So you can see it's teetering now. And let's have it teeter a little bit more. And then one more. So it's almost like it's a haunted briefcase. And then it'll fall straight down. Let's pull this out a little bit and collapse. And maybe this object eventually I'll remodel and animate it so like it opens or something. So you can see here it falls off. And let's actually pull this back a little bit more. So it's here. And then on this frame it's still up here. Let's kind of pull this up just a little bit. And it falls over. Alright, so we can press space and see how fast that is. And we can stretch these out too. So let's uncheck play. Double click this and inside of here we can go ahead and stretch out our timeline. So I'm going to pull this out just a little bit and you can see as we press play it goes really quickly. So let's go ahead and make this a full 1 second animation. So let's see how long that takes. So we'll stretch this out a little bit, we'll play with this timing. So we get something like that. It's kind of this haunted house or whatever, but it brings our attention. Now I want to bring special note to this. When I stop this and I press play, you can see that the animation goes right off the bat when I press play. Now I don't necessarily want that to happen, so when I click on this, you'll notice that it has an animator component and there's nothing happening. Um, but here, let's see. But we have it playing off of here, so we need to put a pause inside of this animation. So actually what might be interesting is as the game plays, you see that click on, and then maybe the light turns on over here indicating we need to go there. So, um, so let's go ahead and do game object light, and we'll add a spotlight. And we'll just position that right by the door here. And so that'll sort of let the player know that they need to go here. So it's kind of another sort of check. And I'm going to increase the intensity of that a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is create a activation. Well, let's start with another group, and we'll call this lights. And then I'm going to right click on this in here and create an activation track. I'm going to drag that in here, and I'm going to grab my light from here, and I'm going to drop that into um, onto my timeline, and I'll make an activation track out of that. And let me delete this one, and I'll put this on their lights. And notice that it turned off, and the reason is we want it to turn on the second it hits the floor. And we can have it only stay on for a certain period of time or as long as we want. So let's go ahead and press play and see what happens. You can see, here, let's kind of make this more gamified. Let's grab our first person controller, and let's just kind of move it over here. So now the second the game starts, you can see that it draws our attention there. So a little bit of game design. In the next video, we'll take a look at scripting out some of these elements.